Hello again, welcome back, thanks for joining me again. My name is Peter Banks and this is my glorious CS-80. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about how I came to own it and the first usage that I made of it. Alongside the Moog, but the Moog has got a little bit of a issue because I haven't been able to take it back to John the repairer because of the coronavirus situation. Anyway, going to use my Novation keyboard to make some Moogish sounds, so that's going to replicate the Moog. Anyway, here we go, here's the story. Our first kind of key release was this album called Signs of Change, and this would now be referred to as prog rock, and sometimes I'm a little bit embarrassed by that, but it's actually quite symphonic. It's still available on the After the Fire web shop and Angel Air Records, link below, and it has quite epic songs. 7 minutes, 4 minutes 30 is probably the oh no, there's 2 minute 58, but 11 minutes, 8 minutes, 11 minutes 22 was a track, Pilgrim, that used to get shouted out at some of our concerts, even right towards the end of the live band. So that was what financed. We did that as a self-financed album, and we sold it mail order, and we sold a lot of copies, and we got onto the radio because of most people were doing singles but not an album. So that was part one. Having done that, we suddenly found we were able to write music again, and we went from writing these epics down to the 3 minute 10-second pop songs essentially, but because we had the energy of a rock band, it would later become known as power pop. And then when we went in to do a load of demos, we got signed relatively quickly, and we were signed to CBS Records, and that is now Sony Music, and we went in and recorded One Rule for You and Joy, and that was the first time I had seen a CS-80. The instruments that I had at the time were a Mini Moog Model D, a fabulous instrument as I mentioned in some of my previous video blogs, and Hammond C3. They were the key instruments that we recorded those two tracks in. In fact, Joy, we'll just talk about that for a second. Joy went straight down. We did one take and jaws dropped in the studio because it was so fast with the introduction, and we blasted through it, and they said, well, that's can't just take one take, you're going to have to do another one. Anyway, we did one more take and they kept the first one, and it was fine. All we did was we did overdub a couple more little bits of the Moog, not because necessarily I played it wrong, of course, but because we just wanted to fatten the sound a little bit. And really, apart from a bit of stairwell snare, and if you've done recording in the old way where you literally go and get an ambient sound out from an echoey reverberant room, it adds a lot of authenticity. So I either had to go out into this stairwell out the back of the studio and bash this snare for 20 minutes or so to get that. So coming back to One Rule, the original synth was recorded using the Mini Moog, sorry, I need to get that right, and the Hammond C3 played the organ part, which is you can hear on the original recording. They then said, let's rent in a CS-80, and so we got this CS-80 in, and we overdubbed a little bit of organ to match the organ that I played on the C3, and I also added some bass. can't really remember what exactly, but you can hear it on the recording. It was an overdub and it was a one-time pass. But then there's a headphone socket somewhere here. I plugged the headphones in while they were doing some stuff in the control room, and I was dabbling around. And I went back, I said, please can I overdub this sound on Joy? And they said, no, it's finished, it's all done. I said, well, you've not mixed it yet. Anyway, they let me overdub Funky 3 and Funky 4, and you can very much hear that in both the bass and the top end swirling around underneath that track. So that was my introduction to the CS-80, and frankly, while other guys were doing things in the control room or overdubbing other parts, I had the headphones on and was just exploring some of the basic sounds of it. And the reason I chose Funky 3 and Funky 4, well, there's not that many presets, and I hadn't figured out how to do the memories or the panel, so it made sense to choose something instantly, and that was just such a wonderful playable instrument. So we then eventually came out with that single, and it went on to become a minor hit, made the top 40. And we had started to record other tracks. In fact, we tried to re-record One Rule for You. We did 2 or 3 versions of it. We went to a different producer. We did different songs in different studios. We went to the Townhouse and worked with John Leckie, amazing studio, probably long gone now. And we landed up in the Marquee Studios, literally out the back of the Marquee Club in Wardour Street. And we went in there with the head of A&R, Muff Winwood, and we finished off the album, and we did a number of songs which eventually came out on the Laser Love album. And this is my actual copy that I think I might have actually gone into a shop and bought, because even though I had been given a copy, I just wanted to do that, go and buy my own album. This album cover was probably the favourite album cover that we had, and it was done by Roslav Jarbo from within the CBS design department. And although that design, there was quite a little bit of, he used the same idea over again. We really loved that. I loved that whole idea. It meant something to us, and it won an award. So the tracks on here, we've looked at Joy and we've looked at One Rule, but I had to, when we bought the CS-80, which was just before we went into the second batch of recording, so that was with John Leckie, and so I sat down one weekend, look at that, early publicity for the single, and I worked out, I'll put this on screen, I'll photograph this and put this on screen. Let's see if you can get that away and put it there. And it's the songs that we were playing and the settings, the presets that I chose. And apart from a couple, they're nearly all the memories that I set up. I spent ages going through and setting up the memories and kind of tailoring the sounds. What's interesting is there's a song on here that I just simply cannot remember, and that's You Never Told Me. So I don't know whether anyone ever remembers us playing it live. We must have played it live. Joy, Listen to Me, which was a B-side. Your Love Is Alive, another B-side. Laser Love. Laser Love was slightly later than some of the songs. Take Me Higher, Can You Face It? Again, that went on to ATF album, the second album. Time to Think, One Rule for You, Life in the City, Suspended Animation, Little Sun, Little Rain, which I don't think made it on until one of our much more recent albums from a live set. Check it out, Power of a Jet, and Help, the cover of the Beatles song. And really, apart from guitar and the funky sounds, there's no other presets used. So let's have a look at Laser Love, because Laser Love was actually one of my favourite ATF songs, because I think it really became an anthem for our following, our supporters, because of the shouts. I have played a little bit before, but what I wanted to do, whoa, not that one. Let's get the settings for that. It will be, yeah, memory 1 and memory 2, so pretty straightforward. Actually, there's an additional setting here which says these are all central, which is quite interesting. Now the chords, one of the things that I started to work on as a music writer was just to make them slightly different. So for instance, in a G, which was one of our favourite chords, and that's something I learnt later on, was to vary the keys. But typically, if you've got a song in G and you're going down, you go down to the D or the B minor, or the D, or the D6, or the D7, and then you go to E minor. And I wanted to ring the changes, so what I did there was I came down to F on the bass, and so that it was effectively a G7th rather than going to the D. So then down to the F, then to the E minor. And then we did the really weird bit, which was E flat, F, full F, not a G7, B flat with a D bass, lovely, then a D7th, but with the F sharp bass, then a G sus4th, back to the G. So G, G7th F bass, E minor E bass, E flat, F, F, B flat D bass, D7th, F sharp bass, G sus4, G. So love those chords, love that passing, that route. It was quite interesting. I don't know whether anybody ever really completely replicated that when they tried to play it. So yeah, that's a little bit of a secret there. So that was Laser Love. We've looked at Joy. Take Me Higher. Let's have a look at my crib sheet. Memory 1 and memory 2, and this was a lot higher. It just swung, but it started with the drums and it just swung between the F and the D minor, so a slight change away from G.
It's called Take Me Higher.
Incidentally, I'm playing a D minor 7th, not the full D minor. And then just a run from the B flat, F, A bass, G minor 7th, G bass, F. and then back right down to the C, and then back up to the song. So those were the chords that I played for Take Me High. Life in the City, that's pretty straightforward. Let's find 1 and 2, memory 1 and memory 2. So that started with guitar, came in with the drums, and then it was no, that's not right. Can't remember. Life in the City. What's next on the album? Oh, Suspended Animation. Now this is memory 1 and memory 4. This was started with this incredible riff that
This one's called Suspended Animation.
G minor rocking to F, but with some sevenths and some sixths, not sixths, ninths, so F ninth. So some extra little notes shoved in there and with the bass. I tried not to with my left hand, definitely tried not to clatter what Andy was playing. However, the CS-80 has that wonderful texture that it doesn't seem to muddle, or muddy would be a better word, what's happening in the bass, because it finds its own unique space, and the texture of it is so wonderful. Well, look, that completes side 1. I think I'm going to have a cup of tea and have a listen through and see whether I've covered everything I wanted to say. Cheers!